And I appreciate you all being here. And let me begin by thanking Beverly Warren and Zach West. Isaiah Martin, you have just heard. And one of the things that we try to do at our meetings is bring people up to talk about the realities of their lives. And one of the realities that Isaiah is dealing with and that all of you are dealing with is the insanity of millions of people struggling with outrageously high levels of student debt, and we're going to deal with that issue. You know, the media kind of distorts what campaigns are about. Campaigns are not about Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, or anybody else. You know what campaigns are really about? They're about you. And what serious politics in a democracy is about is respecting different people's points of view, but going into your own hearts and saying, what are the issues that impact my life, my family's lives, my friends' lives, and my community's lives, and who is going to be best to address those issues? That's about it. It ain't more complicated than that. It's not about Donald Trump's children. It's not about anything else. It's about your lives, and that's what I want to talk about today. Now, we know, all of you know, that we live in a highly competitive global economy, all right? We know that the economy is changing. We know that technology is exploding. We know that the education that I received when I was your age won't work today. Okay, the world changes. We know that 50 years ago, for people in Vermont and Ohio, if you had a high school degree, you know what? Likelihood is you could go out and get a pretty good job, make it into the middle class. That world has changed. So when we talk about public education today, it is not good enough to talk about first grade through high school. Not good enough anymore. We have got to talk about making public colleges and universities tuition free. Now, this is not a radical idea. It exists in countries all over the world. And in fact, in many great universities and colleges here in America, that was the case 40, 50 years ago. What Hillary Clinton believes and what I believe, we reached an agreement at the end of the campaign. And Secretary Clinton is out campaigning on it as we speak. And that is that every family in America that has an income of $125,000 or less, that's 83% of our population, every one of those families should have the right to send their kids to public colleges and universities tuition free. And the other thing that Secretary Clinton understands, and that I understand, is it is really crazy. And I want you to, when I throughout my campaign asking people, think big, not small. Take a step back and just think, does it make sense when our economy depends on the best educated workforce we can have to have tens of millions of people today struggling with high levels of student debt? How many of you guys are worried about student debt? All right. That's crazy. What we want you to do is when you leave school, go out, live your lives. Get married, have kids, get a car, get a house, get a good job. Don't have to sit around worrying about student debt for the rest of your life. So Secretary Clinton has a very strong plan which will substantially reduce the level of student debt in this country, among many other features. What it says is that right now you should be able, or people with student debt, should be able to refinance their loans with the lowest interest rates they can find. You can go out now and buy a car at 1%, 2% interest rates, but many people are stuck with interest rates on student debt of 6, 7, 8%. They're stuck with that forever. And we believe you should be able to refinance that debt and get lower interest rates. Now, when we talk about the differences between the candidates, we have today in America more income and wealth inequality than any major country on earth, and it is worse today in the United States than any time since the 1920s. I want you to hear this. The top 1/10 of 1%, 1/10 of 1%, owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. Got that? In the last 16 years, since the year 2000, we have seen the number of billionaires in this country grow by 10 times. Used to be 51 billionaires. Today there are well over 500 billionaires worth $2.4 trillion, 500 people. And here is the point. This country is not a poor country. We are the wealthiest country in the history of the world, but most people don't know that because almost all of that wealth rests in the hands of the 1%. Together, we are going to change that. Now, one of the differences between Secretary Clinton and Donald Trump, one of the many, many differences, is Trump says, okay, we got all these billionaires, and he's a billionaire, and we're going to give huge tax breaks to the wealthiest people in this country. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. You got 1 million children in this country who are homeless. Now is not the time to give tax breaks to billionaires. Now is the time to protect Social Security and the needs of our elderly and the needs of our children, not tax breaks for billionaires. And Secretary Clinton understands that and is going to ask the wealthiest people and the largest corporations to start paying their fair share of taxes. Now, it just so happens, as all of you know, that when we have a presidential election, it is not in a sense a national election where the person with the most votes wins. We have an electoral college, and it is an election composed of 50 separate states. There are a number of states, probably like my own state of Vermont, they're going to vote for Secretary Clinton. Here for Vermont. And there are some states, unfortunately, that will likely vote for Mr. Trump. And then there are states that are called battleground states. You are in one of them. So the work that you do, so what that means essentially is the state is up for grabs. Trump could win it, Clinton could win it, Ted Strickland could win it, Mr. Portman could win it. You will make that decision. And the whole country is looking at you and the state of Ohio because of the importance of this state. And our job is to do everything that we can do here in Ohio to make sure that Secretary Clinton and Ted Strickland win. Now, this reality of Ohio being important is not just something that I know. The Republicans actually know this too. They've heard about this. And what you are seeing in this state is of great concern to me in terms of billionaires attempting to buy this election. Now, when we look at American democracy, I'm kind of old-fashioned. You know what I believe? I believe in one person, one vote. You got to vote, and you got to vote, and you got to vote. I do not believe that billionaires should be able to buy elections. And right here, and by the way, on this issue, you got conservatives and Republicans, progressives, Democrats, who actually agree. Polls show overwhelming opposition to this disastrous Supreme Court decision on Citizens United. And here is a very fundamental difference between Secretary Clinton and Mr. Trump. Secretary Clinton has said that she will not nominate any candidate to the United States Supreme Court unless that man or woman makes it very clear that he or she will vote to overturn this disastrous Citizens United. And Mr. Trump said, oh no, he's going to appoint another conservative justice, just like the 5 who gave us this terrible decision. And by the way, it is not just campaign finance issues before the Supreme Court. It is a woman's right to choose. It is gay rights issues. And one of the important features of this campaign is to making sure that we have a president who is going to appoint people to the Supreme Court who understand the Constitution rather than just working to protect the wealthy and the powerful. So that's a huge difference between the two. Let me tell you another one. I am a member of the Senate on both the Environmental and Energy Committees. And I have talked to scientists not only all over this country, but all over the United States. The debate over climate change is over. The scientific community is virtually unanimous. Climate change is real. It is caused by human activity and the emission of carbon. It is already causing devastating problems in terms of rising sea levels, drought, floods, extreme weather disturbances, acidification of the oceans. That is what is happening now. And if we do not act boldly and begin to transform our energy system, the bad situation of today will become worse in years to come. Secretary Clinton understands that, and she also understands that the working people who are involved in the fossil fuel industry are not at fault, and they must be protected as we transform our energy system. And she understands, and I understand, that over a period of years, we can create millions of good-paying jobs, moving toward energy efficiency, moving toward sustainable energies like wind and solar and geothermal, developing an efficient transportation system. The United States of America can and must lead the world, and Secretary Clinton understands this in fighting and combating climate change. But in terms of Mr. Trump, well, he believes, like many Republican leaders believe, that climate change is a hoax. In Mr. Trump's case, it's a hoax perpetrated, I don't know how he got this one, by China. Not Mexico, but China. Okay. So I want you to think about this one for a second, and I want you to talk to your friends who may not vote, who don't think politics is significant. Ask them how they feel about climate change, and I suspect they will feel very strongly about it. And contrast Secretary Clinton's position to Donald Trump's position. One has an aggressive program to combat climate change, and the other one doesn't even believe that climate change is real. Third area of major difference, and I think maybe ultimately the most important. I don't have to tell anybody in this room that from the inception of this country and before we became a nation, there has been horrific levels of discrimination and bigotry and racism. I don't have to tell anybody here, you are smart people, about what the settlers who came to this country did to the Native American people. And by the way, that problem exists today, and we need a new relationship to the Native American communities all over America. And I do not have to tell anybody here about the abomination of slavery and racism and segregation. I don't have to tell you about the discrimination against Asian Americans, the Chinese who came to build the railroads, or the discrimination that the Irish or the Italians or the Jews and the others saw in this country. And if there's anything that we should be proud of, living here in 2016, is that over those years, there have always been people standing up, sometimes dying, sometimes going to jail, sometimes getting beaten, who said that in America we will not be a racist, discriminatory society. And that has been a brutal struggle. Every generation has picked it up and moved it in a different way. And we all know that racism still exists, sexism still exists, homophobia still exists. We all know that. But we also know that as a nation, we have come a long, long way in combating those forms of discrimination. And now we have a candidate for president who is making the cornerstone of his campaign, not really economics, not healthcare, not the environment, not foreign policy. The cornerstone of Donald Trump's campaign is bigotry, is dividing us up. You know, in a democracy, honest people have differences of opinion, and we respect different people's points of view. Some people are more conservative, more progressive, whatever it may be. Learn, listen to other people. But we cannot elect a president of the United States whose campaign is based on bigotry, who is trying to divide us up as a nation. Several years ago, and this just resurfaced the other day, several years ago, Trump was a leader in the so-called birther movement. And let me be very clear about what the birther movement was about. It was not disagreeing with Obama. You have the right to disagree with Obama anytime you want. What they were trying to do, led by Donald Trump, is to delegitimize the presidency of the first African-American president we have ever had. That is what that effort was, to say, oh, Barack Obama, he's not really the president because he was not really born in America. What an outrage. What a racist attack against the president of the United States. And then he went on from there. And told us we're supposed to hate Muslims, or we're supposed to hate Mexicans. We are not, as Americans, going to fall for that bigotry. So I say to all Americans, I don't care if you're conservative, I don't care if you're progressive. You know and I know that this nation has struggled too far and too long to overcome bigotry and discrimination. We are not going back. This is an enormously, enormously important election. And for those of your friends who say, well, I don't like anybody, I'm not going to vote, let them understand that people like the Koch brothers, the second wealthiest family in America, are spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to elect people like Mr. Senator Portman here in Ohio and others all over this country. Ask your friends who are not prepared to vote why it is that the Koch brothers are spending hundreds of millions of dollars if this election is not important. And the answer is this election is very, very important. Hillary Clinton believes, as I believe, that a $7.25 minimum wage is a starvation wage. We got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. Secretary Clinton believes, and she has been a leader on this issue, in saying that in America, women should not make 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. They deserve the whole dollar. Hillary Clinton and I believe that women have the right to control their own bodies, not the United States government. And Hillary Clinton and I believe that our gay brothers and sisters have the right to get married and love anybody they want. So this election will impact your lives and the lives of your children and your grandchildren. That's what is at stake here. Now, what the billionaire class wants, and they work very hard on this, is to really create an environment in which people are sick and tired of politics. They don't vote. They give up. That is what they want. What I want to see is this country have the highest level of voter turnout of any country on earth. I want working people and young people to stand up and fight back. Our job is to create a nation and to create a government which works for all of us, not just the billionaire class and not just the top 1%. Our job is to think big and not small. Our job is to ask why it is that we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a right. Trump wants to end the Affordable Care Act and throw 20 million people off of health insurance. Secretary Clinton wants to expand health care. We have a struggle on our hands, and Ohio is going to be pivotal in that struggle. If Secretary Clinton wins here in Ohio, I believe she will be the next president of the United States. If Ted Strickland wins his race for the Senate, it is likely the Democrats will regain control of the United States Senate. And a lot of that falls on the shoulders of the people of this great state. So I would hope that in the next 5 or 6 weeks, not only will you come out to vote, you got to do more than that. You got to talk to your friends and your coworkers and your fellow students and your uncles and your aunts. You got to start talking sense to them. And you have got to do everything that you can to make sure that Secretary Clinton and Ted Strickland win this state. Thank you all very much.